Hi everyone, welcome to Vlogmas day 19 here on Making Things with String. That was a little bit of a guess. I do think it's day 19 though. Yes, welcome. My name is Kate and this is my channel all about my crafting, mostly cross stitch and knitting and a little bit of crochet. Welcome. I'm doing a video every single day in December. Today is going to be a pretty long video, I think, just because of all the stuff that I have planned to discuss. It has been an eventful weekend, and I've got some stuff planned above and beyond the typical daily Vlogmas stuff. So let me give you a bit of an overview of the journey we are about to embark on. I'm going to start off with my holiday countdown slash advent stuff as per usual. And then I'm going to talk about a new cross stitch start that I made today. I started a new project today, so we'll talk about that. I'm going to go through my yarn stash. I'm going to go through all my yarn whips, works in progress. And I'm going to talk about some knitting projects that I have on my radar that I want to start with some of the yarn in my stash. So as I'm going through my stash, I'll sort of be explaining projects that I want to knit with those things if I have particular projects in mind. So after the knitting stash update, I will be talking about the New Year's Eve 12 by 12 that is going on, sort of a New Year's Eve cross-stitching event, a virtual event, I guess. And I'll be talking about how I am planning to participate, slightly outside of the technical rules of that event, but I'll explain what my goal is for that day. And then I'm going to talk about another planned start for 2023 that has to do with cross stitch as well. So hopefully we can get to all of that. Let's get going so that this doesn't take a million years. So first thing, let's start with the Vista Fade Advent Calendar that I've been opening on a daily basis. This is a yarn Advent Calendar by Hugh Loco. Here is the skein for today. This colorway is Sky. And there's some, really beautiful, rich, vibrant blues coming out these days in this advent calendar. Some rich greens in there too, and I'm loving this. It's exactly what I was hoping for with the theme of this advent calendar. It's very sort of nature walk inspired, and yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. And I will be talking later on in this video about what I'm currently planning to knit with this advent calendar. That is one of the things that we're going to talk about later. So hang on for that. I know you're all excited to hear about it. Right, so that was today's skein from the Vista Fade Advent Calendar. Next up, we opened our beer countdown box, and today's beer is by 9 Locks, which is a brewery in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, which is very, very close to where I live here in Halifax. So I've had lots of 9 Locks beer before. I've never heard of or had this beer before, which is called Wiener Lager. The can really made me laugh. There's this sort of happy looking lumberjack floating down the river on a fully dressed gigantic hot dog. The can says, 9 Locks Wiener Lager is our take on traditional Vienna lager, also known as a Wiener Lager, probably Wiener Lager in German. This amber lager originates from Austria and has a soft, smooth maltiness, light bitterness with a dry finish. The clean, bready rich and toasty malt flavor is followed by floral, spicy hop aroma. So pretty funny. I mean, it was fine. It was a good beer. I enjoyed it. Not my favorite beer that I've ever had, but I definitely got a kick out of the name of this and chuckled at the graphic on the can, and just, you know, overall no complaints. It was a good time. All right, last but not least for my holiday countdown updates, we have the Holiday Countdown Sal by Modern Folk Embroidery, Evertote, and Roxy Floss Co. So you should be seeing what my stitching looks like for today. Today I added in DMC 3866. It's sort of the lightest, most white looking color of my palette, and hopefully you can see why. Today we are stitching some cute little snowflakes and a little doggy, and as far as I can tell, just completely breaking with the otherwise established pattern of this band sampler. So, I mean, maybe you can consider this one big band, but it's very different from all of the other sections in this sampler in its size, and just by nature of the fact that it doesn't sort of repeat from left to right across the column. So interesting, interesting developments here in the countdown Sal. Just really excited to see what this section looks like when it comes together, because right now it's pretty sparse. Also related to that, hoping that when it does come together, everything is placed correctly here, because there was quite a bit of counting involved in this today too. Anyways, really happy with this. Yeah, it's a cool and unexpected twist, and I really liked stitching that cute little doggy. All right, so now I'm going to give you a little bit of a turtle update on my geometric turtle. This is sort of the other project, the other cross-stitch project that I have been working on daily during December. And my goal each day on this is to fill in 3 of the sections. I've finished the whole outline. I want to fill in 2.7 or about 3 of these spaces each day, and this is so that I can have it done by Christmas. And that's been going really well. I got the largest sections out of the way, and now it's pretty easy and quick to get 3 sections done in a day. So loving how this turtle is coming. It's definitely going to be done on time. And because I have been feeling so good about that, today I got the itch to start a new project. Once I finished my 3 turtle space fill-ins, it was still fairly mid-afternoon-ish, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start a new project. And so the project that I started today is Ragnarok by Long Dog Samplers. So if you've been following along on my channel, you'll probably know that I have this pattern and that I want to stitch it, and that I have wanted to stitch it for quite some time. And after going through all of my fabric and doing some maths, I determined that I would be able to stitch this, this piece on my 28 count even weave. So I'm probably not going to take footage of this because it's just such a tiny small start. So I will show it to you here, and hopefully that looks all right. Here's my tiny little baby start on Ragnarok. And so this is just a little bit of the border. I'm using some DMC variegated floss. It's color 115. So this doesn't show the extent of the variegation yet. It goes quite a bit deeper than this. But yeah, I've just got a little bit, about 30 stitches width on the border so far. And so I am stitching this one strand of floss, one thread over one thread in this 28 count even weave. So I'm stitching it 1 over 1. And this is my first time stitching 1 over 1. And I believe it's my first time stitching on such a small count. You know, I stitch over 1 on Aida a lot, but the smallest Aida count that I've ever done that on is 18. So yeah, these are just teeny tiny baby little stitches. I don't know if you can even see them. This is like 3 rows of stitches here and 30 stitches across. And it's so teeny tiny. So loving it so far. This isn't like the nicest fabric. It's a little bit stiff, and it's called even weave, but in my opinion the weave is not really very even. But this is what I have. I'm gonna use what I have. That's the whole point of this, the mindset for 2023, right? We'll see there's already been a sort of exception to that I used some Christmas money to purchase, but that's okay too, because we always knew that there was going to be exceptions as well when I really wanted them. So having said that, I'm really excited to have started this piece, and I can't wait to, you know, keep poking away and working on it. Ragnarok, yeah. All right, so we're gonna take a little cross stitch break. I'm gonna talk about all my yarn stuff now. Maybe I will timestamp this video down below just because there's gonna be so many different sections. So if you don't care at all about knitting, you can skip ahead. And here's some more cross stitch plans that I have. But yes, for now, I think I'll start with works in progress, then go through my yarn stash and talk about projects that I want to stitch with or to knit with any of those pieces. And then we'll end with stuff that I want to make that I don't necessarily know what yarn I'm using for yet. All right, so first off, I'm going to show you my granny stripe blanket. This is one that I've mentioned in Vlogmas, but have not shown yet. And I showed this last in my very first Flosstube video. So I've got it folded in half here, so it's twice as wide as this. But this is just a little granny stripe blanket that I have been knitting, or sorry, it's crocheted. And every time that I have like some yarn left over from a skein after knitting socks or a shawl or something, I keep those extras and I crochet them into this gigantic blanket, which will essentially be the size of my bed when it's done. So that was a little pan of all of the different sections. And I've got this somewhat messy looking little skein. And by my estimates, once I've crocheted this into this blanket, it will be complete and big enough to be a blanket. So that will be the end of my very first granny stripe blanket. You'll see later that I do have lots of scraps left, so I will be doing something else with those scraps, and I have ideas for what that will be as well. Okay, so let's keep going with whips that you have seen before. The next whip that I have is this sock that I've started. It's I wonder if I have the pattern. What's it called? Can't find the pattern right now, but this is a heavy sock pattern that was published by Briggs & Little, and that is the yarn company that made the yarn that it is being knit out of. And so I haven't made any progress on this as of yet, but here are the 2 cakes of yarn that I'm knitting it from. I'll hopefully end up with eventually 2 pairs of socks. One that I'm knitting right now, where this sort of deeper purpley brown is the main color, and this lighter sort of grayish blue is the contrast. And then I'll have a pair where that is reversed, and this is the main color and this is the contrast. So I talked about this a lot in my last Flosstube video, I think. So if you care to know more about this yarn and the sock pattern, then go check that out. So my next whip is another one that you have seen before. It's the current sock that I am knitting. Another sock, I guess. This is my second current sock. And this is just a pretty basic stockinette sock that is the pattern that sort of I came up with. It's got a little bit of ribbing down each side, and otherwise it's fully stockinette. And this is some lovely green and gray yarn that I don't know the name of because I lost the ball band and it's been wound up into a cake for a long time, so I don't quite remember where I got this yarn from, but this is still exactly in the same spot as the last time you saw it. This is the first of the two socks, but I am like nearing the toe here, so this first sock will be done sometime soon. So I think those are all the whips that you have seen before. I have a few things here that I've never shown you. So let's start with this here. A couple years ago for Christmas, I got a skein of this chalet merino and hemp blend yarn in the colorway Pedalo for Christmas from my husband Neil and or the boys, our two sons. So so this is like a pretty small little skein of yarn, but they got it for me because they knew that I love sort of mustard yellows, which you may have picked up on as well on this channel. And so they got me this, but I realized that I didn't really know what I wanted to make with just that one little skein. So I went to my local yarn shop where they purchased the yarn, and I picked up another skein of the same color and sort of a neutral sort of cream color. And I have started knitting a colorwork hat with this. And so let's see if I can give you a good view of this hat. I actually forgot to check what pattern this is, but I will look it up, and if I can find it, hopefully I can, because I would like to finish this hat. I'll put a picture here and I'll sort of indicate the name of this pattern. But if I remember correctly, the white will sort of look like trees going around the perimeter of the hat, and I've got a cute little pom-pom I think that I'm gonna put on top of this hat. It's really nice yarn. It's very soft. And I love color work on hats and mitts because it keeps them a little bit warmer in these cold winter months. So that is one work in progress that you have not yet seen. Here's another work in progress. I actually may have shown you this sock before. I also knit a pair of baby socks out of this same yarn. And this was the Christmas Day skein out of my Advent from last year, my yarn Advent from last year. So it's really, really nice. It's got like whites and baby pink and blue, and then some pops of sort of really dark purple. And while I was traveling this summer, I knit this sock. And so I've got one full sock knit, and I haven't cast on the second sock yet. It'll be interesting trying to do that because I did some interesting different things with this sock. So the pattern on the body, it's based on Hermione's everyday sock, like the repeat that happens throughout the body of that pattern, but it's slightly different. It's sort of like the pearls are sort of spiraling around. And I did a seed stitch heel on this as well. So hopefully I can recreate this and make the second sock out of the rest of the skein. So next up, I was gifted a couple skeins of Lady Galt Croy sock and sweater yarn. And you can tell by the band that this is from quite a long time ago. So Neil's grandmother, my grandmother-in-law, had this yarn, and you know, I think she does still do some knitting, but not with yarn this fine. Like, I think she's kind of more working with worsted weight and stuff like around there these days. So she figured she wasn't going to use this yarn and gave it to me. And I decided to cast on a pair of socks, and I'm knitting these socks 2 at a time, which is something that I've never tried before, but have always wanted to. So I decided to try that with this yarn, and I've got this little lacy sock pattern that I'm trying, and I don't know, I can't remember what pattern this is, so I will need to look that up and try to find it if I'm going to finish these socks. I would like to, because this is like an interesting technique. So I would like to fully knit a pair of socks using this 2 at a time method. So yeah, it's really interesting. Like, the way that these are set up, I go ahead and knit half of the round of this first sock, right? I knit the back of it, and then I drop the yarn and I knit the back of this one, and then I come around and knit the front of this one, and then pick the yarn back up and knit the front of this one. And so you end up, like, it takes twice as long to knit a sock, but you're knitting both socks at the same time. So really interesting technique. But yeah, I kind of got started and made like pretty decent progress here, but then I got distracted and tucked these away and lost track of them. So that's a project that I'm not willing to rip out. I'm not willing to say I'm not doing this. So I would like to pick these back up at some point and get them done. This last whip has been in progress for years. Right now, it is a giant brown rectangle with ribbing on either end and some hair. So this is going to be an interestingly constructed sweater. So I believe that the sleeves will be sort of big and baggy like this, and we'll just sort of seam them together like that. And then there's going to be a ribbed border all around the collar here. I'm currently in the process of knitting that, and this is how far I've gotten. So this will go all the way around the front of that little shrug. And I've only just knit this much, and it looks like 2x2 ribbing. So I've just got a whole bunch of 2x2 ribbing left to knit on this, and then attaching it together. So I've had this for such a long time, and this yarn, I actually had knit it, almost fully knit a sweater. And I don't remember what happened or why I had to do this, but I ended up having to frog that sweater. So I completely unraveled the whole sweater and then re-knit it into this. And then I forgot about it. So yeah, I don't know, what a shame. I have an almost ready sweater here, so I should pick that up and work on it at some point. Okay, so I think that's it for my current works in progress with respect to knitting and crochet. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm currently working on. Let's go through my stash of yarn, and then through that process, we will talk about stuff that I want to cast on for knitting this year. So yeah, first let's talk about, I have a little bit of a stash of Woolen Vine yarn, a bunch of different colors in her Nouveau base. So I happen to know that this full skein is Grim. That's her Grim colorway. little fuzzies on it. So this is sort of black-ish, but it's a bit variegated. It's got some like gray tones in there. It's not full true black, but it's a very dark sort of black color. So I love this. I have these yarns from a pack, like a sweater pack that I bought from her. And it's intended to knit the Soldotna crop, which I did. And so I have shown that before on my channel. But these are the 3 contrasting colors. Let me try and get the cat fuzzies. They're just everywhere. Oh wait, where's the yellow? All right, so these are the 3 contrasting colors that go with Grimm on that little crop top. But you can see I've got quite a bit of these left, and I also have quite a bit of the first skein of Grimm. So I've got the amounts of each of those specific colorways, like converted it into yardage, so I know how much I have of each. I have no idea yet what I'm going to make out of those. Yeah, it could be a beautiful shawl. It might even be enough for another cropped top. Who knows? But something really beautiful could come out of that yarn for sure. Okay, let's do this little guy next. I haven't shown you this before. This is just a little skein of Cascade 220 heathers that I have. This is another sort of mustardy yellow that I was gifted for Christmas a couple of years ago. Just haven't done anything with it yet, but I feel like I could make a nice little pair of mittens or something like that. But yeah, just haven't found a particular use for it yet, but I do love this color. I could even make like a nice little cowl with it maybe. It's not the softest, so I don't know if I want to make something sort of next to skin like that. Maybe I think mittens would be a good call. I could also probably make a pair of socks or slippers with this, something like that. But no specific plans as of yet for that. All right, so let's talk about Nerds with Needles. I've got 3 sort of skeins of Nerds with Needles. You've recently seen this skein and mini skein, which I purchased from Halcon from Nerds with Needles. Again, this is in their Nerdy Sock base, which is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. So just really great sort of sock yarn. So this will be a pair of socks. And very similarly, the exact same kind of yarn, but a slightly different colorway, and another sort of matching mini skein to go with this. So again, another pair of socks. Finally, I have this skein from Nerds with Needles. It's called Oh Canada. It's their first colorway that I've gotten from them that actually has a name. And it's a different base. The base doesn't have a name, but it is 75% superwash extra fine merino, 15% cashmere, and 10% nylon. So this is a little bit more soft, and I don't think I want to make socks out of it because of the cashmere content. But I just have no idea what I would make out of this. But it is just like a really cool patriotic yarn. So I like this skein. I just have no idea what I'm going to do with it. Next up, try not to be too loud with this, but this is my set of 4 skeins from Stranded Dye Works. I showed these off in a recent video. So I have 3 skeins of Deep Feelings, this sort of dark navy blue, and 1 skein of Industrial Kingfisher. This is in their BFL nylon fingering weight yarn, and I'm going to make a sweater out of this. Specifically, I want to make the marine sweater, which I will link to in the description of the video, and it's also linked in one of my floss tubes where I discuss that. So that will be something that I cast on at some point next year, hopefully. So apart from that, I just have this little vase filled with little balls, little mini skeins, little leftovers, and a couple other sort of leftover cakes from pairs of socks that I've made. So for example, you might remember this little colorway. I made a pair of sole pour socks out of this and a pair of baby socks out of this, and there's still this much left. So this is the kind of thing that I would normally put into my granny stripe blanket. I think what I will be doing is crocheting a pullover. I've talked about this in a Flosstube video before, so I'll pop a photo of that pullover in. It's got the granny stripe sort of feel to it, but it's constructed into a pullover, like a big baggy pullover. And so I might try and do that with my leftovers, just for something a little bit different. And it'll be sort of like a crazy cozy sweater, hopefully. So I do have a couple other things I want to mention that I hope to knit, and now it's time to talk about the Vista Advent yarn. So I recently found, I was browsing on Ravelry trying to find patterns, something that I might knit with that Advent yarn. As I've stated before in previous Vlogmas videos, I don't want to just knit another blanket or throw out of that yarn because I've already got 2 throws knit from Advent yarn. So my plan was to knit something else. I have a few shawl patterns that are intended for mini skeins, but what I found was this dress pattern. It's called Leona, and it's sort of this ombre little sort of t-shirt dress that looks like it would be extremely simple to knit. It's a reverse stockinette stitch, so you knit it in stockinette and just flip it inside out to get the appearance that it has. And it is intended to sort of shift between a bunch of different colors. So there were a couple stepping stones though, because the pattern, even though it's free on Ravelry, it's in Norwegian. So the first step was to translate the pattern. Luckily that was pretty easy to do with Google Translate. So I just, sat down for 20 minutes and translated the pattern from Norwegian into English. There were some funny translations, but I feel like I pretty much understand what I'm supposed to do. The other thing that is tricky is that I want to use many more colors than the pattern is knit for. So I think they have like 6 or so colors shifting between those different colors. And I have 25. So I'm going to need to think through how I'm going to do those shifts. Oh, another thing is that the dress, that Leona dress, is knit with fingering weight yarn, but you're holding 2 strands together. So I'm worried that that won't be the best way to showcase these individual colorways. But on the other hand, it should work really well because they are intended to fade from one to the other. But what I will need to do is figure out how I'm going to transition between holding 2 strands of one color and holding 1 strand of each of the colors, and then so on. So I want there to be little bands where it's just each individual mini skein, and then 2 mini skeins held together, and then 1, and then keep moving. So I can't use the exact transition that they have charted in their pattern because that is written for just a smaller number of changes than what I'm going to need to make. So I'll need to figure that out and think it through and do a little bit of math. But yeah, that is what I think I'm going to knit essentially. I'm going to knit a little dress, and that'll be the first time I've ever knit a dress before. I've knit several sweaters and tops, but I've never knit anything for the bottom half of my body other than socks. And I've definitely never knit a dress, but I think it looks like it's fairly simply constructed and it should be fairly easy. So looking forward to trying that. The last project that I'd like to mention that I want to knit is a crochet toy hammock, and this is for my niece Elena. This was requested to me by my sister-in-law, and so I'm gonna at some point soon, probably in January, look at what I might need for that, and you know, try and find a picture for you to see what this little hammock looks like. But that's something that I want to make pretty soon. Hopefully I'll have some yarn for it. I should give you a caveat about the yarn that I've just showed you. I meant to say this at the beginning. This isn't literally all of the yarn that I have. I have a bin in a closet downstairs that has other yarn in it, and it's quite a big like Tupperware bin. But that's all sort of acrylic yarn that I don't tend to use much anymore. I tend to knit stuff with more like fancy hand-dyed yarns these days. And so it just was a bit too much for me. Maybe at some point, if I go down there and get into that bin, I could take a picture and show you if you care to see that. But it's a bin of a bunch of scraps of acrylic yarn. For a while, I was making these little cute amigurumi, like little stuffies with just a whole bunch of different, like Vanish Choice Lion Brand yarn, I believe it was. So I just have just a lot of yarn, but, yeah, I mean, it's something that I might think about, like how should I use that yarn up, and maybe there's some kind of scrappy blanket that I can make, or some other scrappy project that I can make with that yarn, or maybe I should just get rid of it, donate it, give it away, but for now I'm not like, feeling like digging into it, so I'm not going to worry about it. For the purposes of what I'm trying to do here, it's just to like take stock of the stuff that I have and that I want to knit with, and get some ideas for projects to put into my queue so that I don't have this urge to buy new skeins of yarn and buy new patterns, because I've already got stuff that I want to knit, is the idea. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for the state of my yarn stash, my whips and my yarn stash, and my projects that I'd like to get started. So hopefully I will find a way to put all of this into my little Notion tracking system, and I'll be able to have it all there as long as alongside my cross stitch stuff, but we'll see. Okay, so that's it for that section. Let's switch back over to cross stitch, and I want to talk about a couple interesting, fun plans that I have for some cross stitching coming up. So on New Year's Eve, there is an event, or like SAL sort of, that's happening. It's being hosted by Pam from Just Keep Stitchin' and Kia B. It's something that they did at least last year. I don't know how many years they've done it, but they call it the 12 by 12. So on New Year's Eve day, starting at noon, the tradition has been every hour you start a new cross stitch project and work on it for that hour. And then when the hour rolls over, you start another project. And so the idea is you get 12 new cross stitch starts on New Year's Eve, and you do that from noon until midnight, until the next year begins. So I get, like, I mean, that's so exciting and really awesome. And I'm all about watching people do 12 new starts. As you might have guessed, for me, that's a lot. And starting 12 new things in one day and only working on them for an hour each sort of like gives me anxiety. So I don't want to participate in that way. But luckily, they did mention that this year there's going to be sort of 2 teams in the 12 by 12 challenge. And so there's team new starts, which is what I just explained, but there's also team whips. And so team whips is going to be choosing 12 of their existing works in progress and working for an hour on each of those. That is much more up my alley, right? So I opened up my handy dandy Notion spreadsheet to see what kinds of works in progress I have and what I might be able to do, because we don't have plans for New Year's, and I think we are just going to kind of chill and maybe have a bit of a movie marathon or something, something pretty relaxed here. So I could be stitching during that day, and so I thought it was something I would like to participate in. But when I got down to my whips, I realized that I think I currently have 7 whips, and 2 of them I hope to have finished by New Year's, right? So my turtle will hopefully be done, and the holiday countdown sal will be done on the 25th of December. So that left me with only 5 whips. However, now I just started Ragnarok, so I've got 6 whips. So what I am going to do, instead of a 12 by 12, is I'm going to do a 6 by 2 by 12. So I'm going to work on all 6 of my whips for 2 hours each, starting at noon on New Year's Eve and finishing at midnight. So yeah, I'll be following along with the hashtag. Hopefully that's not like considered cheating, but if it is, it's like, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know if there's prizes or anything. So if I don't qualify for whatever, if that exists, then fine. I'm just doing it for fun, and I'm doing it in the way that works for me. I don't have a whole lot of whips, which is how I like it. But I do really like the idea of on New Year's Eve, touching every one of my whips and putting some stitches in every one of them, in the hopes that that kind of, reignites and resparks my joy for all of those projects, and helps me kind of get kick-started on making progress on them again in the new year. So that's something fun that I'm going to be doing on New Year's Eve. If you're participating in that too, let me know in the comments. I'm probably going to follow the hashtag on Instagram, and I know that Pam and Kia are going to be doing periodic Instagram lives throughout the day, so you can kind of check in with them and stitch along with them, and see how things are going. I assume people will be updating on Instagram, so I'll do that as well. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about today, my little ring light is dead, so hopefully the lighting is okay. Poor little ring light. This video has been quite a trek compared to my other Vlogmas videos so far. But I have something exciting. So I purchased a new chart today. 2 new charts technically, if you want to be detailed about it. I also purchased a new piece of fabric and some new floss. So holy moly, so anti-no buy. But here's the story. So the things that I purchased is the charts and the materials to participate in the 2023 Modern Folk Embroidery SAL Stitch Along. And yeah, I mean, I've been doing the holiday countdown SAL, really enjoying that, really enjoying the community, watching everybody stitch along on Instagram. And I saw a few weeks ago when Jacob posted a video Jacob of Modern Folk Embroidery posted a video sort of explaining the SAL. I'll link that below as well. And immediately wanted to stitch it. The first SAL that I know of was, I think, the 2020 SAL, which was Fruits of Plenty. Beautiful, beautiful piece. But it didn't really speak to me in any particular way. I never really had an urge to to buy the pattern, especially since I found out about it after the fact, so it wouldn't have been like while the stitch along was going on. I also saw the 2021 stitch along, but again, I think it's beautiful. It's a stunning piece. It's a stunning chart, but it's not really my thing, and it didn't speak to me in any way, like in any real way where I wanted to do it myself. But when he released this year's, the one for 2023, it really does speak to me quite strongly. So this is a really beautiful chart. It's not one of those spaced out samplers with just like motifs all over the place. It looks like it's all really built into this beautiful structure. And it's inspired by Frisian embroidery and the tree of life that's often seen in there. And so, you know, it's all about this tree of life notion. There's a big, beautiful tree in the center of the pattern. And at the bottom, it says, I can't remember exactly. I think it's "we root deep and reach skyward." I'll put you see hopefully the image here. But that really, the tree imagery and that quote really speaks to me. I've always had sort of a soft spot for trees and for nature. I have a tattoo of a tree on my arm, roots and all. And so, you know, when I saw that, and I knew at the time when I saw it that I was trying not to buy new things. And so I thought, well, this is one of those things, and it's one of those tests, and it's the kind of thing I'm going to have to say no to if I want to do the thing that I said I want to do, which is not buy all the things. So I didn't purchase the pattern, but I kept really wanting to. You know, every time it was mentioned, I felt a little pang at like the thought of not doing it. And because, you know, I could always do it later. I could do it in 2024, but part of the excitement is getting to do it while everybody else is doing it, and sharing in that progress together, and being in that community. So the first thing that I have considered in doing this is that my desire for this project has been maintained for like a couple weeks. Like I still really, really want it. It doesn't seem like a whim, and it seems like something, especially now that I'm doing the holiday countdown sale, you know, I think I really do want to stitch this. And then another thing is, so I decided, okay, I'm going to do it, but what I will do is I will buy the materials and the charts with Christmas money that's gifted to me. So the idea is this isn't just something I'm choosing to buy myself and being frivolous. It is something that is a Christmas gift, and those things are allowed to be frivolous and things that you might not buy for yourself normally. So, you know, that's what Christmas gifts are intended to be. You know, oftentimes we get gifted money for Christmas and we don't spend it on stuff like that. We just chuck it into our savings account and it goes into our budget or whatever. However, this year I asked Neil if, you know, it was okay with him if I spent some of our Christmas gift money on this project that I really wanted to do. And of course he said that that was a good idea, and supported that choice. So yeah, I did it today. So I bought the main pattern, which contains 2 variations for most of the motifs. There's sort of choices that you can make when you are going through and stitching the project. So that's another cool thing, is that everybody's piece is going to look a little bit different. However, in that main booklet, there is not choice with respect to the design of the big tree in the middle. To get variation there, you have to buy a separate chart that contains 4 different tree patterns. And so I definitely liked one of those other tree patterns the best. So I bought that. And I also think that once I'm done that 2023 stitch along, I could stitch the other 3 trees just on their own to accompany the main piece and sort of hang them together somewhere. So the sort of main big framed piece with 3 little additional trees near it somewhere. So I think that could be really cool. So I did get both of those charts. And then I ordered some porcelain 20 count Ada from Evertote. as my fabric. And I also ordered floss from them for the project. There was a couple recommended colors that I think would have been beautiful. So they have like a couple different recommended colors. But I decided to page through their floss on my own and choose, see if anything else spoke to me a little bit more. But I really did like the sort of neutral plus blue, deep blue theme that's going in the base chart. So I wanted to remain close to that. And what I settled on was, as my lighter color, I bought some skeins of brass tacks, which is actually like a one-of-a-kind colorway, I believe, and it was on sale, so that was nice, but it was really beautiful. And then my darker sort of bluish color is called the Whiz, and that's sort of a bit of a green leaning, like deep teal sort of color, and I think it's beautiful. If mustard orange is one of my favorite colors, then that sort of deep teal is equally one of my favorite colors. I love those two together, and I think that's why I like this pattern so much, is that it kind of has both of those, like that sort of dichotomy going on. Anyway, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get started on that. So hopefully I can get started on that on New Year's Day. But we'll see, because, shipping is a bit tricky over the holidays. It's already the 18th of December. So I'm not sure if I will get those supplies from Evertote in time, but I'm sure I'll get them sometime in January. And I will get started on that stitch along, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited about it. All right, so that is it for today. This was basically a fully blown Flosstube video, but technically that was Vlogmas for today. Hopefully that makes up for my kind of cop out yesterday. Yesterday we had a big family dinner. We drove for about an hour back and forth to get there, and by the time we got back I was just a little too tired to sit down and do the recording thing. So yeah, hopefully this makes up for some of those sort of cop-out videos that I surely will be doing more of during the week. But yes, thank you for sitting through that if you did. Yes, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're excited. I hope you have some fun, crafty plans coming up for the holidays and for the new year. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow.